Welcome back. I wanted to show you guys my Bokashi compost system since I need to start a new bucket. I just finished off our previous bucket a couple days ago, and I do have some footage of that I will show you really soon. So this is just your standard Bokashi bucket system that you can buy set up like this. It comes with this filter plate and a spigot that lets you drain out any sort of liquid leachate that comes off of the foods, and as it kind of decomposes and ferments, that liquid can be a pretty nice, if you dilute it, a pretty nice fertilizer for your plants. So because I'm starting off this system and I know that one of the first couple layers is going to have some yogurt in it, I am just putting some dry shredded paper grocery bag. This is the stuff that I also put into my worm bins. I'm just putting that on the bottom so that it slows down any sort of leaching into the bottom from extra wet foods on the bottom, and it just kind of soaks that up. It will also ferment the same way that food will. So I have this is a pickle container from the pickles I buy at Costco, and it's about 2/3 full of just general food waste. We've got a little bit of like popcorn kernels, a chicken sandwich that my daughter did not finish, some peels from bananas and oranges, a little bit of SpaghettiOs that was just, she didn't feel like eating and did not put in the fridge for leftovers, and just some like onion peels. Generally speaking, I want to make note that we do our best to limit food waste. We don't want food waste to go to landfills because then it breaks down somewhat anaerobically in a way that allows those gases that can be harmful to our environment be released into the air. By using a Bokashi system, we use this Bokashi brand, which is pre-inoculated with, I believe, what's called the EM1 microorganisms. It's essentially allows you to ferment and break down the foods that you might not typically be able to compost at home, such as dairy or meat or cooked foods that won't really do so well in any compost systems at home. It breaks down those foods and ferments those foods in a way that allows you to then put it in your home compost, and it will break down the rest of the way, either buried in your garden or in your home compost. Some people even feed their Bokashi fermented foods to their vermicompost systems, depending on what it is that that you've put into your Bokashi system. I'm going to go ahead and do a second layer. Between layers, as you noticed, I sprinkled on the Bokashi bran, which is that pre-inoculated. Usually it's either wheat or rice bran that you can buy pre-inoculated. Lots of companies sell Bokashi bran. You can even make some at home. I am in the process of trying to experiment with some different recipes for that, and it's not going so well. I also have this very expired yogurt that had, the top was like inflating. I found it in the back of my fridge. So I like to do my transferring all of my food waste that we've collected in our refrigerator in that that pickle bucket that I showed you. We collect all of our leftovers, food waste, things that we're not likely going to feed to the worm system. We just collect it in the refrigerator, and every 3 to 5 days I will empty it out and do a quick check for any random other leftovers containers in our fridge. And I like to do it right before I start the dishwasher. That way I can grab a used serving spoon from dinner or a scraper or something to kind of set everything up, and then I can throw everything in the dishwasher so nothing is nasty afterwards. But yeah, so I take about 2 tablespoons sprinkled over each layer. That second layer I just put in here was not really a full layer, but that's okay. And then I go ahead and take either a very flat plate, or lately I've been using this lid of an ice cream bucket, and I will press everything down to help remove all the air, because this is an anaerobic process, a fermentation process, so you just want to remove the air between layers. just to let it work. And then you seal the lid off. And once you've filled the bucket, you let it sit for 2 weeks after you've completely filled it and let it complete its fermentation process before you can then go ahead and add it to your hot or cold compost system or dig a trench in your garden and bury it. So during that time, every couple of days, you can check this spigot and drain out any liquid and dilute it and add that as a top dressing fertilizer in your garden, or just throw it in your compost. You can do that. So I'm going to do a quick kind of sort of sped up video here where I show you the other day how I finish off the top of my previous bin. So as you can see, there's a sprinkling of the Bokashi bran over all of the food material on top, and I'm just doing kind of a refrigerator leftovers clean out. And so I've just got containers of leftovers that have been sitting in my fridge for too long for anybody to want to eat them. So it's kind of gross. This is definitely not something that you should watch if you have a sensitive stomach, so I'm sorry about that. But the reality of food waste is you should do your absolute best to reduce your food waste, but when you do have food waste, you still have to deal with it. And so we have a family with several kiddos who we're all still learning about food waste, and with little kids, it's kind of hard. As you'll notice here, I just dumped the leftovers from taco night in the top of here. That is going to work really, really well in this system, and it contains ground meat, which typically you would not be able to put in a compost because it's going to attract pests. With this system, there is no way that it can attract pests, and by the time the microorganisms have broken down all of that matter, it's not going to attract pests that would bother your garden or your yard or whatever, and it will fully finish breaking down after you've buried it or put it into your compost. We also put things like the ends of bread that nobody wants, the crusts that one of the kids didn't eat, the extra frosting scraped off of a cake that, let's face it, sometimes not all of us like the extra excessive frosting that they put on grocery store bakery cakes. I'm also putting in just some like overly wilted green onions that went bad in the fridge, and topping it off with some leftover spaghetti that has been in there for a little bit too long. Just stuff that I would not feed my compost worms or put directly into my regular compost. And because this is the last layer that I'm putting in here, I'm just making sure I press everything down and remove all the air as much as possible. And then I do a really thick coating of that Bokashi bran. So this is going to be more than 2 tablespoons. This is probably closer to 5 or 6 tablespoons. One note, when you're putting food in your system, you do not want to put food that is already moldy. So like green mold or black mold, or even maybe a little bit of white fuzzy mold on produce is okay, but you don't want to put anything that might compete with those microorganisms that are going to be trying to ferment. So it doesn't really matter which Bokashi brand you use. Like I said, I'm experimenting with creating my own, but it's just not going well. And this is a brand that I like. It's from Bokashi Living. I will link it down below. This is where I also got my bucket systems and everything. I've tried a couple of other different brands of the brand, but this one I like the most. If you have any questions about this system, leave them in the comments below. See you next time.